unpacking today's headlines. This is Souls and Liberty in Depth.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to In Depth, a production of Souls and Liberty in partnership with MyPillow.com. As the People's Revolution, that's what I like to call it here because that's what it is, starts to settle in Washington, D.C., something of a longer view is needed by us, patriots. We're talking about the U.S. Congress and the Senate in particular. But just before that, a quick off-the-top show request. If you like what we do here, and we do kind of cool stuff here, please click on the provided link to make a donation to help us out. At Souls and Liberty, we put our Catholic brain power to work and provide you about an hour or so of one-stop shopping, framing the issues so you have a better grasp of what's going on and how to respond. Spiritual destinies are what's at stake. Absolutely. What are ultimately being battled over, and the state of the nation is definitely involved in those destinies. A country with communist principles, even some principles, will never succeed, and that means individuals will suffer. They will suffer injustice and deprivation in soul and liberty. Little closing thought on this. Mikhail Gorbachev told St. John Paul, just as the Soviet Union had fallen apart, that we failed in Russia because we had no soul. Cannot let that happen in the United States. This is the perspective and the lens we use to bring you what we believe is important for you to know. So if you're able to help us in this mission, we greatly appreciate it and thank you in advance. So today, the non sequitur between the presidential votes and voters for senators in various states. For example, take a little research we put together here. There are 6 battleground states, and of the 12 Senate seats, 2 for each state, in states that Trump won, because he won all of those, 9 of those 12 seats are occupied by Democrats. Those are red states, and 4 of them happened in this election. So when you take a look at this, you go down the list there. I mean, you look at Arizona, 2 Democrats, and Gallego 1. That was one of those weird, kept counting for 400 days afterwards, and then all of a sudden he jumps in the lead. That stuff's got to be checked out. In Georgia, Raphael Warnock and John Ossoff. I mean, Trump won Georgia in 16. He won Georgia in 24. And yet somehow these guys are in because of all that crap that happened after 2020 and everything. But Warnock beat Herschel Walker. There we are. Michigan, same thing. We had another one of these counting until all the last hours of the day and everything else. And Alyssa Slotkin, who had been a congresswoman, is now Senate. I think she won her race, I believe, by less than 1 point. Now, Michigan, you might kind of understand because it was really close. Michigan was one of the 3 states that Trump won, but did not win a majority of the vote. And I think he finished up at 49.8, just barely under there. But still, there's this question of really, are there voters going to the polls, voting for Trump and then voting for the Democratic senator on the same ballot? It just seems weird. Nevada, Jackie Rosen won re-election. In Pennsylvania, John Fetterman is there, but that's one of the ones that started flipping. We'll talk about that in a moment. And then, of course, in Wisconsin, Tammy Baldwin, eked out a victory, much like Alyssa Slotkin did. So, there's really red states with red state voters, GOP voters that are going to the polls, voting for Trump, and then voting for what is essentially the antithesis of Trump in a Democratic senator. It's weird. Now, these were all battleground states that Trump flipped. It gave him the Electoral College landslide he got. Again, 3 of these 6 states have not one but 2 Democratic senators. Trump won 31 states. If voters in those states voted straight ticket, Republicans would have 62 U.S. senators. As it is, it's only 53. And the difference is these red states with blue senators, sometimes 1 and surprisingly, sometimes 2. That's the difference. There's some good news, however, in the red senators movement. Of these 4 states, take a look at these. Of these 4 red states, this election dumped 3 Democratic senators, and those 3 states have now 2 Republican senators. As we alluded to earlier, in red Pennsylvania, it went for Trump. 1 blue senator, Bob Casey Jr., was just sent packing, leaving only John Fetterman, Democratic blue senator, of course, here. Now, the contrast, however, with the blue states and their senator allotment, it's pretty stark. Of the 19 states that are considered blue, 18 of the 19 have 2 blue senators, the only exception being Susan Collins in Maine, who votes routinely in favor of Democratic bills. She's really like sort of 3/4 Democrat blue anyway. The point of all this analysis is this. When it comes to the U.S. Senate, the Democrats are much better at having their blue states send 2 blue senators to Washington than the Republicans are in sending 2 red senators to D.C. And in cases like Arizona, Nevada, Georgia, Republicans don't send any. Trump wins those states, and yet there's no Republican senators. Democrats lock down their blue states, and their Republican ones flail about. The GOP simply cannot allow a state to vote red for president and then split the ticket when it comes to Senate races. Democrats never allow that, as we just showed you, yet Republicans seem to allow it to happen all over the country. There's something wrong there with the state parties, or cheating and stealing, or rigging in certain counties. Something is weird. Each blue state, 19 of them are in total lockstep with each other. Republicans need to learn that lesson, and they need to learn it fast. I'd like to invite in now Stephen Wynn to talk more about this. Stephen's our fellow contributor here with us at Souls and Liberty. You know, Stephen, you go down this map. First of all, you kudos. Stephen's the one that put all this research together, so thank you for that, Stephen.
Oh, yeah, you bet. You bet. Yeah,
Take a bow. Take a bow. Come on. Applaud yourself. Do this on camera. Yay. I'm Stephen. I rock.
Yes. Happy to help. Happy to lend my help with that. It's really interesting. What our research shows is that there is a very strange disconnect in the battleground states. 4 of the Senate races that we investigated, that you showed on screen there, those were decided just last month, okay, after years of suffering, of American decline as a result of leftist policies. And it seems like voters in these states somehow didn't grasp that a vote for the Democratic Senate candidate, was a vote for Kamala. Voters who split the ticket, it makes no sense whatsoever. Okay, great. You voted for Trump. Wonderful, beautiful. But guess what? You then voted to scuttle his agenda.
Yeah.
By sending a Democrat to the Senate, you rubber stamped the very communist policies that Kamala represented, and you essentially undid your Trump vote, and you helped set up massive roadblocks to the rescue of this nation.
Yeah, if we can for a second, let's take a look at that for a moment now. I mean, it's a fair point. It's exactly what it is. If you say Jackie Rosen doesn't make it to the Senate and is replaced by the Republican. If Kari Lake had beaten Galego, however you say his name, or the other ones, Alyssa Slotkin was defeated, and Tammy Baldwin was defeated, you'd have 57 Republican senators right now, not 53, and there would be no controversy. There would be no controversy because the Republican senators in those races, they would have voted for Hegseth and Patel and all on down the line. There'd be none of this ability because the margin is so slim that every single you have a Lisa Murkowski defect and Susan Collins, and all of a sudden the Democrats are seeing light at the end of the tunnel to block everything. Their replacements for the rhinos, you got to have a sufficient number. And I mean, you're right. It just seems weird to me. Seems really weird that Republican voters who would go vote for Trump would all of a sudden not vote for him. Now, it wouldn't have been Democrats. Democrats aren't voting for Trump and then voting for the Democratic candidate. So somewhere there in that kind of independent crowd, you've got to imagine that that's where that's coming from. How come, I mean, there's independents in blue states. How come the Democrats never have this problem? They get all their Democratic vote locked down in 19 states. That's 38 senators. I mean, they just give 38 senators, or in Susan Collins' case, and I might as well be senator. They have 38 senators who vote in lockstep. and then they count on this chaos in Republican states to, shore up their numbers. It doesn't make sense. How is the Democratic Party in all of these states with independents able to lock down their Senate votes with independents, and yet the Republicans are not able to do that in their red states? That's the question.
Right, exactly. And not only, is there a Democratic lockdown in the areas you outlined, voters apparently don't grasp, the independent voters who split the ticket. I don't think they don't grasp the fact that, the DNC keeps a lockdown in the Senate, in the House. They do a much better job, as we're seeing unfold today, where, with the battle over Hegseth. They do a much better job of keeping their senators, their representatives in line.
Yeah.
It's very rare to see a Democrat flouting the party line. They are committed to their ideology, and they make sure that the senators, their representatives, vote like that. And so I don't know. It just seems like some people, maybe they wanted Trump to go into Washington and raise hell, but they like their local senator, whatever. It makes no sense whatsoever. And the Team Trump has got, starting now, has got to make sure that voters are educated on this. Moving forward, we have an amazing opportunity to open eyes, but we've got to make sure that we're committed to doing that. And I do think there's hope. I think this could be the beginning of doing just that. In the 4 Senate races that were decided last month, the Republican candidate, yes, they lost, but not by much. In Arizona, Gallego, he beat Kerry Lake by roughly 80,000 votes. In Wisconsin, Tammy Baldwin, she defeated the Republican challenger by fewer than 30,000 votes. In Nevada, Jackie Rosen, she came to victory by less than 25,000 votes. And in Michigan, Elissa Slotkin came out on top by less than 20,000 votes. And that's in a state of 10 million people. So I think we have an enormous opportunity here if we commit to it to really start rolling that back.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're the Senate, what is it, the Senate Reelection Committee or whatever it is, the Republican group that gets together, every 2 years for the Senate races to keep their own and try to flip them. There's something wrong in there. Something's not working right. The Democrats have the exact same thing. The Democratic Senatorial Committee, whatever it's called, that is in charge of making sure that they win their races and try to flip seats in the red states. Those two things work in opposition to each other, but they have the same mission: win for their side. And one of the things, for example, what was your number on Kerry Lake that Gallego won?
About 80,000 votes. Roughly.
80,000 votes in 2.5 million votes, 3 million. What was it?
Roughly 3.
So, really 80,000 votes. And I think one of the things to remember here, and this is the problem that the Democrats, and I certainly on the Democratic side, why are they so efficient? Because they went through the purge. They went through the purge back in the 90s and the early 2000s when Bush was in. If you were not a party line member, if you were not abortion until a kid graduates from high school, you can abort him up until the time he's 26, all of it. They got rid of all of them. Some older viewers, the listeners here, may remember the term blue dog Democrats. Those people don't exist anymore. Right. The blue dog Democrats were to the Democratic Party what the Freedom Caucus is now to the Republican Party in the House anyway, or what MAGA is. And they went through the purge, and there is nobody there. There is not a single Democrat there who will not vote in lockstep. It's just one giant monolithic vote. Boom. You are not allowed to step out of line on it. Think of all of them. Build Back Better, the Inflation Reduction Act, all of it. Every last bit of it. That's how it runs. Even go back to the Obamacare. That thing was done in the dead of the night on actually the Feast of St. Joseph, March 19th, of all things. And they purged. The Republican Party needs to purge itself of these rhinos, because the Republican Party, as it's constituted right now in D.C. on Capitol Hill, has too many variations in it. There's this and there's that. I mean, look, Mitch McConnell assured that we lost that Senate seat, Kari Lake seat, in Arizona because he refused to have any money from the Republican Senatorial Committee, whatever the name of it is, can't remember, go to her campaign. Zero. Gave her nothing. Why? Because she was MAGA. And, these guys make the determination because the rhinos are part of the deep state. And they don't care if a Republican candidate loses, even when you've got something as tenuous as sort of the control of the U.S. Senate in the balance. They don't care if the Republican wins or lose. Well, they do care that they win. They don't care if they lose. They'll help them lose passively by just giving them no money, by putting the word out that, no other senators or, notable Republicans or influencers should show up on the stage with, in this case, Kari Lake. 80,000 votes. She came within 80,000 votes and had every headwind against her. The people like Mitch McConnell, they're the deep state, the old guard. They need purging like the Democrats did their purging of their more quasi-conservative crowd, the blue dog Democrats. They're gone. There's no such thing as a blue dog Democrat anymore. If they are, maybe on some local school board, but that's about it. They have no play at all in Washington, D.C., because Nancy Pelosi made the determination back in the early 2000s, these guys are gone, because they were challenging her. And, no, that's not a good play. Shouldn't run strategy that way. It's too liberal, blah, blah, all that and everything. So she's like, yeah, go on. Yeah. You wait till you go to sleep. That was her response. And she did it. She got rid of all of them. The Republicans, there's not an appetite for that. And here we are. This is now the consequences of it, that, you've got a Senate going through gymnastics and fits and twists and turning themselves into pretzels to figure out if whether Trump's appointees his nominees should actually be confirmed. That shouldn't even be a question. They all voted for Merrick Garland. They all voted for, Rachel Levine. Richard Levine, whatever the hell his real name is. He's a guy. Yes. They voted for all these crazies. They voted for all of them because, as Susan Collins said, well, a president does have a right to his own cabinet. I mean, we've got to give him that. Well, but not when it comes to Trump. Sorry, I'm ranting, Stephen. Take the ball. Take the microphone, quick. Take the talking stick away from me.
I agree. Yeah, I agree completely. There does need to be a purge. We see how destructive rhinos can be. I'm just amazed that the big opposition to basically rescuing our military, the very backbone that guarantees the life and freedom of this country, is coming from someone from Iowa. But then when you look at Senator Ernst's background, she was fully behind BLM, the George Floyd protests, all this kind of stuff. I mean, that is an enormous red flag. And so, I don't know. I don't know where to begin, but that kind of candidate moving forward, cannot be allowed to run under the Republican banner. It just can't, because as we see, it will just take one or two votes to basically sink a major initiative to turn this country around, and there's no excuse for that.
Yeah, when you look at what goes on, you can take Joni Ernst for example. When she's running the first time, like sweeping in the whole MAGA world. They say some of the right things and it's not that they don't agree with, they secretly disagree and want to subterfuge everything Donald Trump is doing. But, how do they make it through? I mean, all of this, of course, we're talking about senators right now. So it all starts in the state, and the state Republican Party in each state, is simply not attuned enough to this. Now, the question is, are they not attuned to it because they don't understand it, talking about the state party in Iowa, Michigan, wherever it is, that they don't understand it? Or is it that the state party is still controlled on the state level by the rhinos, and they're the ones who pick the candidate? They won't let a MAGA person come in because they don't want a MAGA person going to D.C. and having the intended effect that a MAGA person in the Senate would do, as opposed to a rhino senator. So, I'm on one level, it's not a federal position, but if you think back to the re-election campaign a couple of years ago from in Michigan between Governor Gretchen Whitmer, the incumbent Democrat, and Tudor Dixon. Tudor Dixon was the state GOP is controlled in Michigan by the DeVos family. People probably don't necessarily know that name, but if you think of Amway, that's the DeVos family. They have hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars. So in an interesting move there, when Tudor Dixon was, oh, she seems to be coming up, and, she looks like she'd be a threat, and she was like young and vibrant and all of that sort of thing. The DeVos family threw $10 million into her campaign so that she would win the primary. And then when she won the primary and she goes up against Gretchen Whitmer, the DeVos family gave her nothing, did not contribute a single red nickel to her campaign so that she would lose to Gretchen Whitmer, because they didn't want Tudor Dixon being the candidate. I can't remember who she was running against, but they didn't want that person more. Did I say that right? They had more concerns about her primary candidate than her, so they backed her to defeat that guy. And then when she went up against Gretchen Whitmer, they just withdrew their funding from her. This is how these state GOPs run. They're much more self-concerned with their own power base than the Democratic state GOP, Democratic state parties are, who are much more obedient to the ideology. The ideology of the Democratic state parties is much better served by those people. Like, they go through a litmus test. You can't get into the Democratic Party political machine in any of these 19 states unless you are check every box: climate change, and we love illegal immigration, abort children until they have their college degree. I mean, go through everything. Climate change, you put a mask on. You can't get near the seat of power unless you take that oath and you stick to it, and you take one step out of line, and brother, you are gone. No one ever hears from you again. It is rigid as all day. On the Republican side, the state party GOP isn't married to an ideology. They're married to their own self-interests, and that's got to go. That's got to go. And, you've got an opportunity here now in the next 3 election cycles, including a presidential one in 2028, to completely reform. What happened on the presidential side within MAGA now has to trickle down to the state parties. They have to be viewed as Democrats, as anti-MAGA, as anti-patriots. I don't care if they've got the Republican label on them or not. It's complete bullshit, as the Irish would say. And they need to be challenged. That power needs to be taken away from them, and it has to be the power of the vote, which means MAGA in all of these states, these 7, 8 states we're in, they should be running ads right now. Find your candidate for Senate and put them up and start going for it. Run the ads now. Get the people behind you. There are people now. There's people there that, David Sachs just got nominated by Trump, multi-zillion billionaire. Elon Musk, throw money into PACs to get these kinds of, you've got to get the rhinos out. They have got to be purged, and they've got to be purged on the state party level. By the time they get to D.C., it's too late. I mean, there they are. There's Joni Ernst. She's there, trying to sink Hegseth. All this needs to be blown up. Trump winning is the beginning of it. Now can it move on to, a complete purge like Nancy Pelosi directed of the Democratic Party. That's why they always get so close, because they've got this block of like 48%, and they just try to peel away 2 or 3% of Republicans or independents, and they win. That's got to stop. That strategy has to be brought to an end. The majority of the country is not that, but they managed to just cobble together just enough to be able to win, and they really did win kind of down ticket. Is there some cheating going on? You'd never convince me there wasn't. All of the states where they turned at the last minute, oh, look, we have a Democratic, oh, we went. But how are they in the position to be able to do that? Because they control the states. So, that's what's got to be brought to an end. I blather on more, Stephen. Give the audience a break from my ranting.
No, I mean, I can only echo that. I mean, I think it's crucial. I think you're right. It's been selfish self-interest, basically, that has really guided far too many Republican donors in particular over the years, and we're seeing the fruits of that now. I am hopeful because MAGA certainly does seem ideological now. And so I'm hoping that we can replicate what the Democrats did. And as you say, purge the remaining, holdouts, basically the rhinos who are proving to be so destructive to this country. And I think social media is going to help a great deal with that. I see all over the place now on X, people are talking about, primarying Joni Ernst. And I think, whether or not Hegseth is confirmed, God, please let it happen. She needs to be primaried and she needs to be out when her term ends. I don't care whether he, even if he gets in, she needs to be gone. And every Republican senator who votes against him, same thing. They need to be out of there.
Yep. I mean, the good thing is that Mitch McConnell isn't running again, but he's kind of entrenched himself now for 2 years to be nothing but an obstructionist. He's not running again. Pretty sure that's correct. I think I heard that he's done in 2026. But these people need to be, they need to be gone. The purge needs to happen. All right, Stephen, we're going to leave all of that right there now for a quick moment, and we're going to take a short break. And when we come back, we're going to be talking with you about some of the strangest advice to Democrats on how to win. And it's the weirdest advice that you're ever going to hear. Stick around for that. Stephen and I will chop it up on that right after this.
Because of your overwhelming support, our 1488 MyPillow has been one of the biggest sales in MyPillow history. I couldn't think of a better way to say thank you than to extend our wholesale pricing through Christmas. Get a classic standard MyPillow for only $14.88. Upgrade to a queen size, just $18.88. King size, only $1 more. Get my body pillows for only $29.88. And ready? Multi-use MyPillows, only $9.88. It's perfect time to stock up for Christmas gifts for everyone on your list. Go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to take advantage of our wholesale pricing, including my classic standard MyPillows, only $14.88. But that's not all. I'm so confident you're going to love our classic MyPillows that I'm going to extend my 60-day money-back guarantee until March 1st, 2025. Plus, orders over $75 ship absolutely free.
All right, welcome back, everybody. We're about to show you some of the advice that is being given to Democrats on how to win. The first part of the show, we talked about Republicans. Now we're talking about Democrats. It comes from the Rue Teixeira, longtime political expert who hangs mostly with the lefties, but he does still have some pretty decent insights on the political landscape. Stephen, we're going to come back to you now here, and I want you to lead us off. There's 16 points he put together. And again, his name's Rue Teixeira. Many people probably don't know the name that well, but he writes for some of the more left things. He's on CAP, which is the Center for American Progress, which is the George Soros funded thing. But just because somebody's off, their political compass is off, doesn't mean that they don't find things every now and then. And what was it? Broken clock twice a day. Blind squirrel finds a nut. All that sort of stuff. Teixeira's got some really interesting observations here. So he's telling Democrats that here is a list of 16 principles that you must accept. and you must publicly accept them because the public doesn't trust you anymore. So Stephen, if you want to lead us off on the first one, this is, I mean, the day the Democrats accept one of these, much less 16, is the day the world comes to an end. But anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, it's fascinating. You know, he basically he's saying in order to win elections, you need to become Republican, and you'll see that reflected throughout all of these. And it's laughable because each one of these is just so common sense, but not to the left, basically. All right, we'll start off with number one here. Equality of opportunity is a fundamental American principle. Equality of outcome is not. Okay, of course, absolutely. The thing that has made America great in the past has been the fact that there was more freedom than anywhere in the world to prosper, basically. If you worked hard, if you educated yourself as best you could, if you committed yourself to success, you could far more often than not, you could achieve some very respectable measure of success. Now, we don't live in a utopia. We don't live in we live in a fallen world. So, I mean, we'd all love to be as wealthy as Elon Musk, of course. That will not happen, in this age, in this era, this fallen world that we have. But with sort of a level playing field, an equal advantage starting out, if you commit yourself to hard work, to bettering yourself, you can do great things. Now, of course, in recent years, recent decades, that's become less and less true because of democratic, leftist, Marxist policies. Exactly. It gets the farther left a country goes, I suppose the more equal people get, but they're all at the bottom, with a few on top. George Orwell, in his book Animal Farm, a satire on communist rule, he basically, there was a famous line out of there: all animals are equal, some are more equal than others. Yeah. Well, that's the elite. That's the Marxist 1% in DC and New York and San Francisco, and so we've got to basically do everything we can to unhinder the American economy, American society, so that people can prosper when they work hard.
Yeah, I mean the last slide, and as people watch these, graphics boards as we bring them up one by one, the first part of his statement is the hey, Democrats, this is what you believe, but here's what you need to accept. So that's kind of the thing here. But for him calling for an equality of outcome is not something that you should be backing. Equality of outcome is what Kamala Harris sat on stage and blathered on about the entire campaign. So can you imagine Kamala Harris or Nancy Pelosi saying, "Oh no, we equality of outcome, we're going to reject that principle"? Their entire thing is built. That's what their entire racism is built on. That thing. Let's move on to number two here. I'll take this one for you, Stephen. America is not perfect, but it is good to be patriotic and proud of the country. Michelle Obama? Really?
Yeah.
You can imagine Michelle Obama standing up and saying she's proud of the country? She said that when Obama won and said, "This is the only time I've been proud of the country." They burn American flags. They insult. They're like, "I hate America. Americans suck. I need to leave America. I need to book my flight, leaving on a jet plane." Really? Proud of the country? You got to be kidding. They've made the either wearing of an American. Remember, Obama wouldn't wear his American flag pin, and that turned into a thing. And he finally put it on because of PR. The burning the flag, you put an American flag on, your truck or, a flagpole in front of your house or something like that. And you're deemed, socially some kind of like radical, domestic terrorist or something like that. The Democrats wouldn't know how to be proud of the country if it hit them in the face. But anyway, we don't have a lot of time. We've got to get through this whole list of 16 because of the absolute hilarity involved here. So why don't you take number three? We'll put the board up here and go ahead.
Okay, very good. Number three, discrimination and racism are bad, but they are not the cause of all disparities in American society. And absolutely, that's totally true. I mean, yes, a lot of minority groups, especially those in the inner city, they have suffered for decades, from poverty and all of that. But so much of their progress has been blocked, basically, by democratic policies. I can tell you today, in the rural parts of America, there are all kinds of poor white folks who are suffering economically and socially, every bit as those in the inner city. And so, again, we have to. The ingredients are there basically for a recovery, basically. And so, if people are unhindered, allowed to really, again, commit themselves, work hard, they can achieve great things. But it's not an issue of race at the very foundation. There's so much of this can be solved through policy, by adopting the right policy.
Again, can you imagine Maxine Waters embracing that principle there, that third one?
Ever.
Discrimination is not the cause of all disparities in American society. Again, you'd have a better chance of betting on the second coming happening in the next hour than Maxine Waters embracing that one. All right, I'll move on. We'll do the fourth one here. Racial achievement gaps are bad, and we should seek to close them. However, they are not due just to racism, and standards of high achievement should be maintained for people of all races. Your entire Democratic Party system is built on quotas. How did KGB get on the U.S. Supreme Court? Because she's a woman and she's black. Because Joe Biden, the leader of the Democratic Party, said, well, I'm going to replace them. I'm going to replace, they bullied Stephen Breyer off the court to make room for her. How do you know ahead of time she's, I've already decided to eliminate all males and all women who aren't black. Really? And so you're going to say that you're going to expect them to do this on achievement? She was the best person possible for the U.S. Supreme Court? Really? Or was she the best woman, subcategory, who is black, further subcategory? Was she the best among them? I have no idea whether she was or wasn't. But 90% of the pool of who might be better was simply eliminated because of their skin color and their sex. A sex, by the way, that she can't seem to give a definition for. So there's no way Democrats are going to do that. As you go through this list, one of the things we want the viewers to kind of think about is the more and more and more. Teixeira is right. I mean, this is what he's saying here. They do need to do, because this is all Republican Party or at least patriotic, conservative type stuff. They ain't accepting this. But it's interesting that one of their own is saying, here's where you're making your mistake. Well, the mistake is their DNA. This is what they actually believe. So, all right, Stephen, take us to the fifth one.
All right. Number 5, no one is completely without bias, but calling all white people racists who benefit from white privilege and American society a white supremacist society is not right or fair. Well, yeah, duh. It's absurd to think otherwise. Yes, absolutely. America has a very complicated racial history, but we had been up until 2008, I would say, getting better and better and better, and we have the highest ideals in this nation, and we had come closer than ever to really truly living up to them, to fulfilling Martin Luther King Jr.'s vision of a country where people are not judged by the color of their skin, by the content of their character, rather. And it's just it's amazing to me that we elected the first African American president, and
twice.
Ever since, the racial tensions have been increasing, and that's because agitation, dividing society against itself, is a hallmark of Marxism, and that's what they've been pushing ever since then. I mean, I tell you what, if we'd elected Alan Keyes instead of Obama, we would be in a whole different place now. And I really hope that with Trump coming in and these new policies coming in, the rising tide is going to lift all boats, and I hope that's going to help continue opening the eyes of Hispanics, African Americans, et cetera, as well as more and more whites. That we begin to rally around America, the United States, and pushing each other to live up to our ideals.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, well said. I mean, this stuff is crazy. Okay, we're going to go on to the fifth. Sixth point that Ruth Teixeira says, hey, fellow Democrats, here's what you should be doing. You should accept the principle that America benefits from presence of immigrants and no immigrant, even if illegal, should be mistreated. People agree with that. But border security is hugely important, as it is an enforceable system that fairly decides who can enter the country. You've got to be kidding if you believe that any Democratic leader is going to sign on to that principle. There isn't one so far, sorry, spoiler alert, none of these 16 that we're going to show you is no Democrat, and certainly no Democrat, worth his weight in political party leadership is going to sign on to one of these things. But I mean, that's just absurd. It was Democrats. Remember the whole question over why won't President Biden say the word border crisis? That went on for the first 3 years. Why won't he say border crisis? Because they engineered the border to be overrun. No Democrat in power is going to come up and say, now, remember Kamala there in the last 2 months because she had some campaign polling. Oh, I think we should build a wall. I think a wall is a good idea. Pass me another vodka. I mean, no way. I mean, it's absurd to think that they're gonna sign on to that. Border security, my foot. You had 3.5 years to secure the border, and you let in 10, 15, 20 million illegals, however many it is. Many of whom went on to kill Americans, steal children, smuggle in fentanyl, child sex trafficking, raping and murdering American women. Yeah. Democrats love all that. They love it. They can say whatever they want about gun control and this, that, and the other. They don't give a damn about people being violently assaulted, raped, killed, kidnapped, sex trafficked by illegal immigrants. They don't care. Stephen, you're up.
All right. Yes. Moving on to number 7 here. Police misconduct and brutality against people of any race is wrong, and we need to reform police conduct and recruitment. However, more and better policing is needed to get criminals off the streets and secure public safety. That cannot be provided by defunding the police. Again, just a kindergartner can understand this.
Not
if you
happening.
Anyone, who's not totally zombified by the woke mind virus gets that. Obviously, in theological terms, again, we live in a fallen world. Just because we have satellites soaring overhead in space and whatnot, we are every bit as corrupt as Adam and Eve were on the day they fell, and that will always remain. We're born with original sin, and what happens when you lift any types of restraint, enforcement, etc.? People run amok. And we see that with the ridiculous policies, over the past couple of years. San Francisco, for example, ground zero for the shoplifting crisis. They literally just let people come in and take whatever they want.
They post signs: don't steal more than, don't shoplift more than $900 or $990, whatever it is, or that's a felony. But you can do all of this other stuff. So steal whatever you want up to $900, and they post signs that say that. By the way, criminals, as you're running down the street with your stolen goods, be sure and avoid the piles of human feces all up and down the streets of every street in San Francisco.
Yep, exactly. It boggles the mind. And I mean, of course, obviously, you can see, go online and see instances in which, there are bad cops who, are power hungry or whatever that are not fulfilling their duty to the citizens. They're, abusing their power or whatnot. But I would argue the vast majority of police, of law enforcement officers are good. And I tell you what, I could not do what they do. I would lose my mind. Seeing what they see every day, and now in the environment of the past few years, being threatened, chastised, beaten down because of it. it's incredible. So
yeah, there's a reason all these sheriff's association, police law, blah, 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 all this stuff, the FBI rank and file. There's a reason they all threw their support to Trump, because they're sick of getting bullied by the woke mob. And who could blame them? I mean, really going to stand there with a gun on your hip and let somebody yell and scream in your face? I mean, that's quite an exercise in human restraint at that point.
Yeah, exactly. And so this kind of thing, it flies in the face of common sense. Moving forward, we need more police. Yes, better trained police, obviously. But we need more cops on the street to begin rolling back the crime wave that's been surging for the past 4 years.
And on the charge, just before we move off of this one, I'll take the next one. But just before we move off of this, when you find a situation where there is a corrupt cop, he's whatever, stealing money, whatever the case is, he's doing something. While there's a great regret on the part of his brothers in blue for that, they are the first ones to say he's got to go, because he or she taints all the rest of them. And they understand it. That may not have been the case back in like the 50s and 60s, maybe even the 70s. The whole, blue crew would gather around and protect and all that. That's not how it is anymore. I used to work in Detroit as a reporter. You found a corrupt cop, and the first ones that wanted him gone were the other cops. So, because it makes them look bad. That's the thing. And you get to say, you Officer Harry here, you supported him while he was beating up and raping, people in the tenements. They don't want that. Anyway, moving on to number 8. There are underlying differences between men and women that should not all be attributed to sexism. Stunning. However, discrimination on the basis of gender is wrong and should always be opposed. No, Ketanji Brown, Jackson Brown, again. I mean, she's a twofer for the whole, poster child of the bad stuff of wokeism. Both put on the court because she's a woman and put on the court because she's black. What about her credentials to be able to rule on anything? Anything. So, yeah, there's a difference between men and women. And, they shouldn't be, they don't want to admit that. They just don't want to admit that. And quite frankly, I don't see how this conversation goes anywhere, even moves off the mark, if your side can't even define what a woman is. Stephen, you're next.
All right. Well said. Yeah. It just, I think the differences in men and women should be celebrated. God created them different, created us different. And that's awesome. The complementarity of it all is awesome. So I don't have a lot more to add than what you said. Basically, it's just you again. This flies in the face of common sense. The left will never get this. Democrats will never embrace this idea, and they'll just keep pushing the line.
That's what's so hysterical about this list. I mean, I agree with this list. I mean, there's not a Republican, MAGA, patriot who wouldn't agree with this list. Police brutality is bad. It doesn't mean defund the cops. Sexism exists, but it isn't the cause of everything. Are some people racist? Yes, but or do you develop your entire nation around that as the starting point? I mean, on and on. Nobody would disagree with this list who's reasonable minded. That's why Democrats will disagree with every one of these things and never embrace these principles. Anyway, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh yeah, no worries. No, yeah, I agree. I just think we will not see that because they are so ideologically committed to essentially insanity. We're not going to see them give that position up. No. So, all right, we can move on to number 9 here. People who want to live as a gender different from their biological sex should have that right. However, biological sex is real, and spaces limited to biological women in areas like sports and prisons should be preserved. Medical treatments like drugs and surgery are serious interventions that should not be available on demand, especially for children. Yeah, I mean,
Duh.
What's that?
Duh.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, think back to 10 years ago, 2014, before same-sex, quote-unquote, marriage was legalized in this country. The transgender movement was nothing compared to what it was today. It really came into focus after Obergefell, the Obergefell decision in 2015. And now today, literally less than a decade later, the country has, been a vast majority of it has seemed to embrace or retreat into this mass psychosis where, oh yes, we think it's fine. Now I don't think the majority believe that, but the fact that this is the official narrative is just insanity. And so, I'm so glad to have people speaking out against it, starting to vote against it. But I think really the tide is turning.
Yeah, this is not. None of these things are starting positions for Democrats if they think they want to win. If they have any hopes of winning, they'll still get enough psychos on their side. 46% of people who actually, would reject all of this and say it's awful and the patriarchy and white colonialists and let's tear down statues and all of that. But to Shara's point here, if you want to win, you better start doing these things. Anyway, accepting these. All right, number 10. I'll take this one. We're getting close to our time here, so we got to speed along a little bit. But language policing has gone too far. By and large, people should be able to express their views without fear of sanction by employer, school, institution, or government. Free speech is a fundamental American value that should be safeguarded everywhere. Easy. I'll take that. The Biden administration reached out to every social media thing, Zuckerberg, who confessed it in a letter, and said, shut down, censor everybody who disagrees with COVID, shut down that Hunter laptop story, shut it all down, all of it. It's what they do. This is in the DNA of these communists, is to silence your critics, use everything you can do to get rid of them, imprison them, weaponize the justice system against them, anything you can do to get rid of them, and then lie and try to infect people with the woke mind virus so they'll vote your way. It's just that simple. No way are Democrats going to embrace these principles. But it's good that one of them actually wrote it down. You get the next one, Stephen.
All right, number 11. Climate change is a serious problem, but it won't be solved overnight. As we move toward a clean energy economy with an all-of-the-above strategy, energy must continue to be cheap, reliable, and abundant. That means fossil fuels, especially natural gas, will continue to be an important part of the mix. Well, I would take issue with his first sentence. I don't know that it's a serious problem, but okay, fine, I'll grant him that. Again, this is just basic common sense. Yesterday we talked about how essential cheap and yet clean, but cheap energy is to the functioning of the economy, to building a stronger and stronger economy. Yep. Trump recognizes this. Elon Musk recognizes this. And Elon Musk does believe, for example, just to mention him, he does believe in climate change, but he thinks that, we have generations to solve the problem. And with the pace of technological development, we can do that without any problem if it is a problem.
The other problem, as you said, your observation, I'm not even sure you'd agree with the first part of the statement, which is climate change is a serious problem. First of all, I'm not sure that's even true, but if it was true, climate changes. That's happened. We used to, where we're sitting here in Houston, used to be under, 400 feet of ice, a billion, trillion, gazillion, whatever it is years ago. I mean, the atmosphere and the temperature and the environment and the climate of Mother Earth changes. Okay. The question is, is man the cause of it changing? And is there something man can do to change that and, I don't know, make everything, from the North Pole to the South Pole, like the Bahamas or something? I don't know. I don't even know what the goal is, actually. But I got 3 initials for that. AOC. Miss, Green New Deal. No way is she accepting that. And her little crazy wing over there. So, just being conscious of the time here, Stephen. I want to get moving on a couple of these. I'll take number 12. We must make America more equal, but we also must make it richer. There is no contradiction between the two. A richer country will make it easier to promote equality. Nope. They're all into class warfare. That's what it's about, which is really funny considering the Democratic Party has really become the party of the elite. It's the white only college educated. The higher the degree you have, the more you're an atheist and the more you support Democrats, and the higher paying job you have. Absolutely. This is not about making the rest of the country richer. The Democratic strategy since the 60s is to keep blacks in particular, because Hispanics weren't really a major focal point back, 60 years ago, as far as their numbers in the culture. Keep blacks poor, dependent on government, and you have an automatic 13% of the vote already locked down. That's been their strategy since the Civil Rights Act. So they're not interested in people getting richer so that, America could be a great country. All of this presumes just that they would want America to be a great country. And they don't. That's why they operate in contradiction to all of these things. I guess shut up, move on, Stephen. I'm getting the 5-minute wrap here. So take the next one.
Okay, very good. Number 13. Degrowth is the worst idea on the left since communism. Ordinary voters want abundance, more stuff, more opportunity, cheaper prices, nicer, more comfortable lives. The only way to provide this is with more growth, not less. That is so self-apparent. All I'll say is that Margaret Thatcher, as prime minister, she once famously observed that socialists would rather have the poor poorer, provided the rich were less rich. And that's what all of that is about. Anyway, I don't want to go on a rant because I'll take up time. Degrowth, are you kidding me? Back to you.
Yeah, I've got one thought in my head. Michelle Obama, with their 4 mansions, lecturing America that, everybody's going to have to give up a piece of the pie, piece of their pie. Really? So you're getting rid of 2 of your $8-9 million mansions? Sure. Number 14, we need to make it much easier to build things, from housing to transmission lines to nuclear reactors. That cannot happen without serious regulatory permitting reform. They're the ones who put all the regulations and rules and roadblocks in the way of all of that happening. They're not going to turn around and say, let's get rid of those regulations. That's why they're terrified about, Elon and Vivek. Elon and Vivek aren't going to be like handing out the CIA report, or the classified documents on the JFK shooting and assassination and all this stuff. They're just going in to make government more efficient. They're terrified of that. You're up, brother.
All right, number 15. America needs a robust industrial policy that goes far beyond climate policy. We are in direct competition with nations like China, a competition we cannot win without building on cutting-edge scientific research in all fields. Again, of course, but the Democrats, their entire philosophy is the left. China is built on leftist ideology. They share Marxism. That's the common denominator there. And so China does not play fair. They're communists. And so to try to bind us to climate policy or whatever sort of ridiculous socialist policies that the Democrats want to pursue in terms of industry, et cetera, time and time again, these have been proven to fail. And yet because they're ideologically committed, they keep pursuing.
All right, I got the last one. I've got the 1-minute wrap here. So number 16, national economic development should prioritize the left behind areas of the country. The New Deal under Franklin Roosevelt did this, and we can do it today. Trickle-down economics from rich metropolitan areas is not working. I think I'd leave the whole sort of political, philosophical discussion on that one alone. But at least 15 of those, he's spot on. And if he's, again, that list comes from, Ru Teixeira, and he says Democrats need to embrace these principles or they're going to lose. Democrats are never going to embrace those principles because that's the complete antithesis of everything that they believe and understand and accept and want to push on everybody else. Steve, we've got to wrap and get the wrap here. Thanks very much, brother, for coming on. We shall see you next week. God bless, man. All right, that wraps us up for today. Remember, you heard it here first. If the Dems want to win in the future, well, they just need to become Republicans. That's it for us today here at In Depth. Thank you for joining us. Coming to you from Houston, Texas, I'm Gary Michael Voris. God love you.